So when we open up After Effects, on the left side, if we look at here on the top here, this is where your entire toolbar is, right? This is, I mean, it's a very small toolbar as compared to the other applications that you might have seen, that you might have worked with. This may seem very simple and very small, okay? But believe me, it's very powerful, right? Then down here, this is where you have the project panel. This is where you bring in all of your assets, you import all of your stuff, and from here, you decide what you have to do next from there. Okay. Right next to it is the effect controls. So by default, this comes in preloaded. If you want to close it off and you don't want to see it temporarily, you can close that off from here. Quite simple. Then at the bottom here, I'm going this way. So mostly I'm going anti-clockwise, right? So at the bottom here, this is where you see the timeline panel and the render queue. Okay. So this is the render queue right now. And on the left, if you click on this tab, it says none right now because there's nothing here. So this is the timeline. Okay. And the timeline is full of controls, right? So much so that they had to, give you an ability to switch on and switch off within different modes of the timeline. So which can happen from here, right? So this is going to, of course, come in a little later when we're going to get into actually doing things. Then you will see that, how much the level of control you can have within this area. Okay. Then we go onto this side. This is where your panels reside. This is your panel well, the entire panel well, right? And you'll have all kinds of panels coming in. So info, then you have align panels, effects and presets. Effects and presets is a huge panel. So the name After Effects. So the effects panel has to be a huge one. Okay, so looking at the effects panel, this is where a lot of effects reside. Then we have the preview panel. This is where we control how we are going to look at what we have done in the timeline here, what we have animated. This is where the control panel for the timeline resides, essentially. Then the next is, we come to here on the top. This is where you can change the workspaces from small screen to standard to default and whatnot. You can even go ahead and have your own customized workspace, just like we used to do in Animate CC, and save that. In order to do that, you can come here in the window, and you can have, these are the different workspaces that are there, right? And then if that at some point of time your workspace gets messed up, you can always go back into the workspace menu here and come down and say reset, right? Reset within quotes whatever workspace you have chosen, right? To save layout. To save layout means that to the default layout. Okay. If there's a custom workspace that you want to save, then you can save that as a new workspace, and that again is going to show up here only. Pretty similar to what we used to do back in Animate. Then this is the place where we see, where we are able to look at what we are animating, right? This is the stage area, if you want to call it, or within After Effects, we say that this is the composition area. You can see the word composition here. Okay, so that's the composition area. This is where you basically see whatever you have composed coming visually in front of you. Okay. So yeah, this is essentially how the workspace looks like. Then the next important thing to understand is about the preferences, because there's some very important preferences that you should be knowing. Okay. Now preferences are essentially the settings of the software, right? in order for you to be able to operate After Effects properly on your machine and in the most optimized manner, right? Because After Effects can be a very heavy application for even the best machines on this earth, right? So it can be resource hungry at times. So what you can do is you can go into the preferences. On Mac, you would find it under After Effects menu, preferences. On a Windows, you would find it under edit, and somewhere here down the line, you would see the word preferences. Okay. So I'll go into preferences and you'll see all these menu items, and I'll start from general. And in the general tab, all of this is pretty okay, nothing to do here. There are some essential settings that I would want you to set up right at the starting. Okay, so allocate as much disk space as you can to the disk cache size. Okay, you want to choose a different folder. By default, this goes into your system drive, okay, and library, and then caches. If you have a separate hard drive, an external one, you can connect that. Give it that location. So the bigger the cache size, the better the performance of the software would be. Okay. Another thing to remember is that you have to always, after, let's say, after every half an hour, or let's say after every session, right? Whenever you start a new session, just remember to come back into preferences and empty your disk cache, right? Because what happens is, whenever you're working with any video editing application or any rendering based application, there are chances that the software is going to churn out a lot of cache files, which are temporary files essentially. Okay, and that's going to make your system choke. Okay, so it's a good idea to keep deleting or keep emptying your disk cache. Then you should also be also make it a habit to clean your database and cache from here also, right? So I just did. It's going to take some time. Let it do its own thing. Says about 1 minute 30 seconds remaining. However, it will be a little earlier than that, I think, I suppose. Okay, so once this is done, the next thing that you might want to do is autosave, right? So, I mean, I have a habit of saving every now and then, but if you're not in a habit to save every now and then, if you don't remember to do that, then it's a good idea to reduce this 20-minute duration to 5 minutes duration. So every 5 minutes, your system is going to autosave, right? So that's something that you should do. Maximum project versions, it creates project versions, right? So how many project versions of project you're working on, let's say project XYZ. So the next version it would create would be XYZ and underscore 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, like that, right? So how many versions do you want to have? After it reaches the 5th, it deletes the first version. Okay. So that's how it does. Then this part is kind of important. You should see that the amount of RAM that you have in your machine is showing up here, the total amount of RAM. And 6 GB right now is available for After Effects or any of these applications if they are running individually, right? If they are running all in parallel, then it would get divided. So one tip here is that try to work with one software at a time. Don't work with all of these softwares open all together, right? So, I mean, just a thing to remember. What else? I think rest everything is fine. Yeah. So then you can say okay, and you should be good to go.